What exactly did you want to convey when you said simple but not easy?
Fitness is very confusing and it's very complicated for most people. So at the end of the day, you want to simplify things. Being fitter makes you better at what you do. I was never fit as I was growing up. I had asthma from the time I was about 10 years old. First attack happened during a karate class. I had to run and I just couldn't breathe. So I broke down crying and I'm sitting there and my dad shows up and I feel like I've let him down and it's a And one day I caught my reflection in the mirror. I really didn't recognize the guy. Talking to myself, and I'm not this dramatic person at all, okay? Things like this don't usually happen in my life. Some people think fitness is losing weight, some people think it's getting stronger, some people think six-pack, size 0, all of that, right? But in reality, things are more convenient today. Food is more abundant today. And so fitness becomes a need. And you want to do the things that you really need to do, the things that you have control over, you want to do them consistently. So simple, not easy.
Where are people getting their knowledge from these days?
Most people get their information from social media, Google searches, from talking to ChatGPT, stuff like that. We've gotten to a stage where watching a movie is productive today.
Watch a movie without forwarding it all the time.
Yes, and that's productive. Like, can we make this whole fitness thing relevant to the common Indian person? Kids today grow up without activity. By the time they get to 25, 30, it may already be too late.
Hello and welcome back to the Exposome Effect. Today we're going to talk about fitness and movement as a way of life, because in every single exposome that has been studied, be it the acne exposome, be it the anti-aging exposome, lifestyle and fitness seem to be an important part of contributing to long-term skin health and longevity. To discuss this, we have with me co-founder of Quad and fitness guru, Raj Ganpath, to discuss about what it means to be fit in today's day and age. Thank you for coming over, and the questions are going to be hopefully simple but not easy.
Of course, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. I'd like to start by asking you about the book. What exactly did you want to convey when you said simple but not easy? Because sometimes we confuse the two, and especially in the domain of physical fitness, what did you want the reader to take away?
So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here, okay? So I've always wanted to write a book. In fact, the first time I wanted to write a book was almost 13, 14 years ago. Okay, so for whatever reason, I thought I was ready to write a book back then, okay? And in my head, writing a fitness book had to be this monster. This 500-pager with a couple hundred pages of references, you know what I mean? That's the kind of book I wanted to write, because my entire experience with fitness has been very scientific, in the sense that I got started because of a personal experience, but then I got into a lot of, reading science, and my background, being in medical devices, involved reading a lot of research papers and things like that. So in my head, fitness was about that, right? I mean, convincing people that this is the right way to go about it. And back in the day, those were how all the books used to be, if you know what I mean. It was pretty much a biochemistry textbook, It was not meant to be an easy read. It was heavy, a lot of jargon.
That's the not easy part.
Right. No, that's not the not easy part. That's how fitness books were written. And that's how I wanted to write a book too, a very technically heavy book. But years of working with people, working with thousands of people, something interesting just came to mind. When I was approached to write a book, the first thing that struck me was people don't want to read a biochemistry textbook. They don't want to do that. And secondly, they don't want to read a book which is filled with, jargon and all the technical terms in fitness. At the same time, they don't want to read a book that makes it feel like fitness is so far away, right? That there's no way for the common person to get there. What people want is something simple to understand. You want to understand how fitness works, right? It could be any field. It could be finance. It could be any of these fields, right? You want to understand the fundamentals, the basics of how things work. And once you understand, you're able to really take control of it, right? In fact, one of my inspirations here was, have you heard of this Professor Michio Kaku? He's an astrophysicist, okay? So I've read about 3 or 4 of his books, and it's phenomenal. These are books about, physics in the future and astrophysics and whatever, but I didn't have to look up a single word. And I'm not a smart person that way at all, okay? And I'm like, wow, this is amazing that someone has so much mastery over their subject matter.
The story, the telling of the storytelling part.
Just, yes, the way the person writes the book is, there's no reason to, complicate things. There's no reason to use jargon. Writing it in a way, using analogies that even a common person like me is able to understand a complicated topic. And that's precisely what I wanted to do with my book, Simple Not Easy. Because fitness is very confusing and it's very complicated for most people. It's very hard to understand. Do I do this? Do I do that? I mean, for instance, you're saying sugar is not good for me, so what about jaggery? right? What about all the different things? So because we don't necessarily understand the fundamentals of it, right? Most people don't understand the basics of it, and that's why it feels very complicated. So the point of Simple Not Easy was to really simplify what fitness is. So if you think about it, fitness overall, it could be nutrition, movement, sleep, stress, all of it. The crux of it, if you break it down, it's actually very simple. It's very commonsensical.
And if you were to state it in 4 to 5 simple statements, here's how you can start an approach to fitness, what would that be?
Well, see, firstly, we have to understand what fitness is. Right? I mean, we all think fitness is. Some people think fitness is losing weight. Some people think it's getting stronger. Some people think six pack, size zero, all of that, right? But in reality, fitness is the ability to do the things that you need to and you want to in your life. And we all play different roles in our lives. Right?
That could apply to anything in life.
Absolutely. And every role comes with a set of responsibilities, comes with a set of expectations. And us being able to do those things is what fitness is. Now, if you take, I don't know, say a professional tennis player, the set of expectations and requirements for a tennis player is very different than it is for, say, a software engineer. But both of them do have these requirements and expectations. So being able to satisfy that, that's fitness. Now, in order to get there, you have to do 6 things. You have to eat well. You have to eat less. You have to move often. I'm talking about general activity. You have to exercise regularly. You have to sleep enough. And you have to manage stress. These are the 6 things, conceptually, fundamentally. And this applies to every single person. But when you go to the specifics, that's where things change. Now, eating well might mean different things for someone who's just trying to be, generally fit, and for someone who's trying to be a peak performance athlete. Eating less might mean different things for someone who's trying to maintain their body weight and for someone who's trying to lose body weight, right? So moving regularly is different, exercising regularly is different, all of that, the specifics change. But at the end of the day, these are the 6 things that we all need to work around. So in the book, the focus is to simplify all of this. So I talk about movement, nutrition, sleep, stress, all of that, but in a way that it is so simple for you to understand. But that said, what is the not easy part? Fitness as a concept is simple. Okay? Do these 6 things and do this consistently. That's it. But it's not easy. The simplest things are hard to do. But more often than not, we lose ourselves in the specifics. I want to know more. I want to know, what is there a hack? Is there a shortcut? Is there a supplement? Is there this? Is there that? We're always trying to find the fastest way forward. And so we're losing sight of the basics. So at the end of the day, you want to simplify things. And you want to do the things that you really need to do. The things that you have control over. You want to do them consistently. So simple, not easy.
Would you say that having in-depth knowledge is actually counterproductive in fitness? Say, for example, for doctors, sometimes we have this, folks Google, and then it's not the same as to what you actually want for them in their particular journey. And then there's this question of, if you say no to this, then what about?
Yep.
The what about really happens at multiple levels. So do you see that having deep knowledge of self is counterproductive, or do people get better and better? We've seen that happen in skincare. When people know a knowledge paradox, when you know a little, or the Dunning-Kruger effect, so when you know a little, it feels like you actually have opinions on a lot of things.
Yep.
But when you know at depth, you actually become more guarded. Is it something that I will ever know enough about my body to manage on my own? Or will it always be that I benefit better from a coach?
It's an interesting question, right? Because you started off talking about the book. In one of the chapters in the book I write, we start with simplicity because we don't know better. We end with simplicity because now we know better. Okay? If you look at that cycle of expertise, everyone starts off as a beginner. And when you start off as a beginner, you keep it very simple. You don't know too much. You just do these 2 or 3 things and you do it well. And then you go into this zone of complicating things, overthinking, paralysis by analysis. You go into all of that. And then once you get to a point where you've been through all of that, you come back to simplicity. And you realize, this is what I was doing when I first got started. So it's an interesting question that you mentioned. What I see is beginners, and beginners to fitness usually don't know much. Okay, used to be the case, not anymore, because like you said, everyone reads and everyone gets this information. So it's actually interesting to see how this changes. You have people who know nothing, who are willing to understand the basics and work on it. Then you have people who know a little bit. Now this clashes against what they already know, right? So they're like, but will this work? What about keto? What about paleo? What if I did this? What do you think about ketones? They get into all these complicated topics because while they think they understand it deeply, they don't really. they don't have to understand it deeply. That's the thing. Now, as an expert in the field, as a doctor, you need to know your specifics, your data. But the important thing is you'll notice that it could be a coach, it could be a doctor. You use theoretical data and you see practical, knowledge, experience. You put it together to come up with your recommendation. It's not either or, it's both, right? And that's the key here. So from a patient's perspective or from a, say fitness client's perspective, they want to get to their endpoint as quickly as possible and they think they are helping the process. But unfortunately, knowledge that we get out of social media and InShots and, just headlines is not deep enough, right? So it kind of lets us go on a lurch, looking for what the exact answer is. So my suggestion would be, if you're someone who wants to take control, you want to learn it by yourself, you want to understand it, yes, just go that extra mile, buy the right books, read, spend time, whatever. But the moment you decide to work with an expert, then you need to really trust your teacher. You have to trust the process and do as told, right? Because that is the most efficient way to get to whatever endpoint that you're getting to.
I think there's two aspects are in operation here. One is the context, because regardless of what knowledge we may acquire through whatever channels online or through observing somebody else, our individual context differs.
Yep.
The second point is application. It's one thing to really be knowledgeable about all of the facts, another thing to apply them and see how it really fits into your lifestyle. Where are people getting their knowledge from these days? What has changed in the last 2 decades?
A lot actually, right? Because in fact, knowledge in general used to be very hard to acquire before, even 2 decades back, right? You couldn't easily get the information you need. And one of the reasons a coach was important, or even a doctorate, right, is like, okay, they know things that I don't know. They have access to books and knowledge and all that I don't know. And they've spent years, going with it. The what was the key. If you think about the what, the how, and the why, right? The what was the key. Today, though, it's information overload.
What is everywhere?
It's just everywhere, right? Water everywhere, not a cup of water to drink, right? That's exactly what it is. You have so much knowledge everywhere, and people seem to want to consume more and more. And just so we're clear, people includes us. Right? Like in different aspects of our life, we all consume, different things, and we're never satiated. We just want to keep, consuming.
FOMO comes in.
Yes, one way or the other, right? And because of so much information, 2 things happen. One is obviously the abundance makes it hard for us to acquire clarity. Yes. The second thing is because we're consuming so much, we're not going deep. The quality of information we're consuming is actually very shallow, right? So most people get their information from social media, from Google searches, from talking to ChatGPT, stuff like that. And you can use these same platforms to learn a lot, but that's not what really happens, right? Because you're on Instagram for what, let's say? You're there for entertainment. It's 2 in the night, you're watching cat videos and, funny videos. And then you see this one video about skin health, right? Or about fitness. I mean, how much of that are you actually, consuming, and how much of that you're actually acquiring? So how much of it really lands well, how much of it you're able to connect to your particular context, all that is, kind of shallow. So we tend to, collect information on the go now. And so it's not sitting too well. So we're not able to fully understand it. But the same people, if they can say, hey, you know what, today I want to learn about skin health, right? So I'm going to read this book, or I'm going to watch this podcast, I'm going to do this. If we do it with, purpose, then I do think everyone is capable of taking advantage of the information overload and learning more. Yeah, but we are so distracted. It's very hard.
It's a mindset that needs to come in before you actually open up to learn. Where did you learn from? What is your journey?
My journey, okay. So for me, it started with personal experience. Okay. From personal experience, it moved on to a lot of research.
Tell us more about the personal experience. What's the origin story?
I will. Okay. See, I was never fit as I was growing up. Okay. I was a fairly inactive child because
Where were you from?
I'm from Chennai. I was born and brought up in Chennai. So I did my schooling in Don Bosco. So all along, I had asthma from the time I was about 10 years old, right? I mean, I remember my first attack happened during a karate class. I had to run and I just couldn't breathe. And it's a very different feeling for the first time when you couldn't breathe. So I broke down crying and I'm sitting there and my dad shows up and I feel like I've let him down. And, it's a feeling I remember, right? So I've had multiple like that. But essentially from then on till I got into fitness, I was never really fit because I was always afraid of getting an asthma attack, and I would get it very easily. Okay? So you learn to live life without it, if you know what I mean, right? You play and things like that, but you don't really exert yourself. Dust will trigger it, things like that. So essentially, that's how my childhood was. And along the way, as I went through this, I ended up, gaining a whole bunch of weight. I was not really very fit. So that was my past. And I got into fitness at around the age of 25. Okay, and I was going through just a tough time in life at that point of time. I'd completed my schooling, obviously. I did my undergrad in Bitspilani, and then I went to New Jersey to do my master's. I was doing my master's in mechanical engineering, but I was a research engineer at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey. And there I was working on medical devices, designing medical devices, research and development. And from there, I moved to California. So I was interning or doing a co-op rather at Boston Scientific. And from there, I moved to California, where I worked in startups. So my first startup was we were designing a neurovascular product, basically a brain implant, okay, and then an endovascular product, right, which was an aortic implant. So that was what I was working on at that point of time. And at that particular time in life, with work, with family, with a lot of personal things, I was just going through a very tough time. And I was kind of losing my way, just bad lifestyle habits and all of that. And one day I caught my reflection in the mirror and I just really didn't recognize the guy, right? In the sense that I really lost the plot. And at that point, I remember me talking to myself, and I'm not this dramatic person at all, okay? Things like this don't usually happen in my life. But I remember telling myself that, okay, what if I can use all this angst and anger and whatever it is that I have inside me, instead of going into this whole self-destructive behavior, right? What if I can build something out of it? And that's how I got into fitness. And I told myself that what I want to work on is running, because that's one thing I could never do, because I would always have an asthma attack. So this was sometime at about 10 o'clock in the night in Mountain View, California. I said, okay, I'm going to go for a run. I don't really have running shoes or anything of that sort, so whatever I have, I wear, and I run. And in 100 meters, I have an asthma attack. This happens. And I give up and I go home. This is what usually happens. But this time I said, I'm not giving up. So I just sat back down there on the curb, waited for my asthma to, subside, and then did another 100 meters, one more attack, one more. Recommend this, by the way. But that's how I got my first mile. And that's how I got into fitness. Like a lot of people, you needed a strong push to get into it, right? So that was my experience. That's how I got into fitness. So that personal experience of going from someone who's been completely, unfit. I wouldn't say I was a diseased kid, right? But I was an unfit kid, right? Never being able to play sport. I was in the hospital quite a few times. I would easily get infections, things like that. So from there, making that transition to becoming someone who's fit was a game changer. Was changed things for me just like I can't explain it. And such a big confidence booster. You realize you can do something that you never thought you could. World opens up, right? What all you can do in life changes. Now you can do all these active things, right? All of that. And at that point, I realized that, you know what? I mean, this is making such a big difference in my life. Maybe, just maybe, it can help other people also. So I said, okay, how am I going to do this? So I got into this crazy reading habit. Like, I mean, I would read research papers every time. And this was a time when there was no Instagram and all that, right? So it was all blogs. So that was it. Like, I would just read blogs over and over again, Every morning I would have research papers printed and ready. And as I'm running on the treadmill, I would read them before I go into work. And then you go to work, you come back. And I started working with people a little bit here and there. And then I said, okay, what is the most structured way to study, to understand this whole fitness and nutrition thing? I said, get a cert. A certification is where you have all the knowledge put together. So I was not really a great student, I can be smart with things and all that, but I'm not really this person who can memorize, remember, go and write, not that way. And then I was studying for this certification, and this was when I had a job, right? So basically I was studying in the evenings and I was spending time on it. I couldn't get enough. I couldn't stop studying.
Obsessed.
I was obsessed. And for the first time, I could see things, if you know what I mean. Things just fit, they came together. Theories, before I had read them, I would already know them, in the sense that I realized it using more of a rational, commonsensical approach. Okay, now you have a name for it and someone came up with it a while ago, so that's why it's called this theory, right? So it was very clear how things came together. And that's when I realized, how people say that there's a calling for you, I really felt it at that point of time. Right? So that was the learning part of it. And then I started working with people to see, okay, this theoretical knowledge, practical application, Two different things, right? Does it really make a difference? I started working with, this is when I was still in the US. I started working with people in India. I didn't really need the money then because I had a job. So I was working with them, just to see if I can help out. And no one took me seriously, naturally, because if it's free, it's free, right? So I started doing a whole bunch of work for charity in the sense that you're working with me, but you have to, work with the charity to do that. And people started taking me a little more seriously, and results were incredible. So I was like, wow, okay, this is excellent, right? It's not just me. I guess I can make this.
People.
Yeah, I mean, help people. At this point, I mean, I guess even the word influence was not really a big thing back then, right? Like people who knew you would reach out to you, you create a plan for them, work with them. And from there, it slowly became tens to hundreds to thousands of people. And that's when we decided, okay, can really make a difference here. In India, things are still the whole bodybuilding approach, 3 days of chest and back and, these different muscle splits and some cardio, and then eating a low-fat diet. That's how it was. So that's when I decided, okay, I want to come back to India and really take all this knowledge, put it together and create something. So the first part of my journey was personal experience, and that's what got me into it. And during this process, I lost about 30, 35 kilos. I became, pretty fit. I was able to essentially take control of asthma completely. And we've tried everything before, right? Everything, including the homeopathic medication, all of that when I was, much younger. My parents had to try all those things. But a change in nutrition is what really made the difference for me. So that was the first part. The second part was the obsessive, reading and learning and getting the theoretical aspects of it. And then is when the practical aspects came in. When I started working with people in hundreds and thousands, you realize some of these don't even apply to the Indian population.
Yeah, I face that all the time for a very long period of time. And even until now, most of the recommendations that you see come from Caucasian experience. I say skin of color has just been invited to sit at the table in the last maybe decade or so.
That was the idea behind the whole thing, right? It's like, can we make this whole fitness thing relevant to the common Indian person? How does it apply? Why do we struggle? What are our real problems? And as I started working with more and more people, the theoretical aspect will always be a part of my life. I mean, until today, I keep doing my research because that's the thing with science. You have to keep up with, in fact, the best thing about science is the fact that you admit that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
That you're always looking for new data. You're always looking for new studies.
Science evolves.
Always. And we have to evolve with it, right? You have to learn. What you studied, say, 10 years ago, is not fully applicable today. A lot more has been, say, unearthed since then. A lot more connections have been formed, right? So it's important to, you have to stay abreast of these things. And even when you're talking about studies and data, it is important to, see, anyone can do a study, right? And you have to remember this, and people listening also. And as someone who gets to work with other people, and I believe that, people like us, we get an opportunity to work with people. And every person we work with, we learn, right? And they are trusting us with their health. So the least we can do is to be extremely thorough in whatever recommendations we are providing. So the scientific part of it will always apply. But the most important part that I am extremely, extremely thankful, grateful, privileged to have is being able to work with tens of thousands of people over the years. Because that practical knowledge, what you learn from applying these theories in different groups of people of different ages, of different constraints, is invaluable. And at the end of the day, it is practical challenges, right? When you talk about fitness, if you think about anything, let's say I'm a doctor, I'm giving you a medication, you're taking it, your job there is to take the medication, right? Now, but let's say as a fitness coach, let's say I'm giving you, a training plan, a nutrition plan, whatever. It's only 50% of the work. You have to do the other 50%.
Even in medicine is the same thing. Yeah, we can give you a prescription for a skincare product. People have to go and apply it.
Yes.
It's about 80% work done
yes,
at home. Yeah?
Definitely, right? I mean, skincare, when I'm talking about, say, even with medication, just medicines you have to pop pills, 30% of patients, if I'm not wrong, don't take the prescribed medication, right?
And now lifestyle has become maybe about, the majority of stuff is now attributable to lifestyle. So then the education about lifestyle has come back full circle.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so people having to do it, so I always tell my students, right, we call them students, not clients, is that, see, this is a partnership and you have to understand that. I can do my part of it. You have to do your part of it. And both of us have to do our part for this to, work, for you to do well. So the fact that we get to work with these people and learn from their experiences is big, because at the end of the day with fitness, like I said, simple, not easy, right? I mean, everyone has the best of intentions. No one's sitting there saying, hey, you know what, I don't believe in this whole fitness thing. I don't want to be fit. Everyone wants to do their best. Everyone wants to sleep well. Everyone wants to exercise. Everyone wants to make the right food choices. it's just not easy because of the world we've built around us. So it's important to understand the practical challenges. Real people, real challenges. Unless you understand the real challenges of real people, you're not going to be able to come up with real world solutions. Right? It's going to be theoretical.
If you look at why maybe fitness is a relatively alien construct for someone that's kind of grown up with it the first 15 years of their life being exposed to fitness. If you think about it, have we as a generation not have had the access to include this as a way of life? That is one. And today when you see the youngsters, do you think in the current day and age, do you think people have a better access to fitness right from their younger age as compared to those of us, the previous generation, who had to get used to or get accustomed to or be exposed to fitness as an adult construct?
Yeah, it is, right? So if you think about it, one part of it is access itself. But we have to accept that even today, fitness is a privilege, okay? In other words, if you have most things in life figured out, then you look into fitness, okay? A lot of people are still figuring out life in general. I mean, not everyone can afford to pay so much for fitness. Not everyone can even think about fitness. For a lot of people, just, building a normal life is taking up most of their days. A certain population is who can indulge in fitness-related activities, which is not necessarily the case in a Western country. Say about 40, 50 years ago, or let's say when we were growing up around that time, two things were different. One was life was not as convenient and food was not as abundant. So we didn't need fitness as much. We wanted fitness, not the same thing. We didn't need to do it in the sense that you still walked. You still ate vegetables and you still, didn't eat as much junk.
And you went to sleep at a decent hour because
you had to.
The lights went out.
Yeah, you had nothing else to do. You didn't have a smartphone to, keep you up all night. So junk food, for example, think about it. What biscuits did we have then? We had Good Day biscuits and, Marie biscuits and stuff like that. Today we have a double stuffed Oreo cookie. Life is just better, right? So things are more convenient today. Food is more abundant today. And so fitness becomes a need. And by fitness here, I'm not talking about athletic sporting performance. I'm talking about general fitness, the definition I had, at the start of it. That becomes necessary. We can't choose to say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is also behaviors being modeled. In other words, when, say, in the 80s, like you're saying, 80s and 90s, who was into fitness? It was not even athletes. If you remember the cricketers of those times, they were not necessarily, fitness, oriented people.
Tell me more.
Well, think about, say, you're talking about, say, think about a Sachin Tendulkar, for example, right? He is not like a fitness model. He is a very fit person for his sport. He didn't miss any games. He was always fit enough to do what he had to do. But you compare that to someone like a Virat Kohli today, who's actually fit. As a general athlete, he's fit. Not as a cricketer, but as a general athlete, he's fit. Right? You wouldn't find someone like a Boone or a Ranatunga, today. Right? Things have changed quite a bit. But back then, when I said fitness, we are usually thinking about bodybuilders. You're thinking about people or actors or models, that. Today, though, in every level, in every field, we have realized that being fitter makes you better at what you do. As simple as that.
Evolutionary also, being fitter signals that you are able. It signals a lot more around ability to perform, confidence, even up to the point that even getting judged in interviews for your ability to lead. I think fitness has come to be an important construct in just being able to judge a person at first view.
Yeah, fitness is cool now, okay? In the sense that, or said differently.
Fitness is the new rich is what Instagram says.
Yeah, so there's something, right? See, about 15, 20 years ago, like you're saying, people would meet at the gym in the morning and they would talk about how much they got drunk at the bar the previous night, okay? This will be just a few people. Today, people meet at the bar at night and they talk about what workout they did in the morning, okay? So you can't be cool without being fit anymore, right? It's kind of penetrated, the population quite a bit. So fitness has become a part and parcel. It is pop culture, if you know what I mean, right? More people talk about it. So as a result of that behavior is also being modeled. In other words, your superstars, your heroes, whoever they are fit, at least are not unfit, if you know what I mean. That never used to be the case before. Your parents, back in the day, were not people who would set aside time to go to the gym. Today, kids grow up watching their parents setting aside time for fitness, right? So that modeling behavior also is changing. And all of this is growth, is evolution. And it's also because, if you look at economics, between, say, in the last 30 to 40 years, purchasing power for the common person has increased. So talk about, say, electricity is not something that you're worried about anymore. Internet is not something that you're worried about anymore. So you're able to focus on higher level things. So fitness is one of those things that more and more people are focusing on. But that's a good thing, because now more people are aware, more people are demanding for solutions that have to be practical in nature. And so more people are coming up with better solutions. Right? So one way or the other, I think it's a win-win. We are going in the right direction. This overload of information, confusion, all of that that's happening, it's just part of the process. The pendulum has to
consolidates, and
it
then
should.
you come up with.
Yes.
I mean, the more it gets applied, people are likely to figure out what really works for them.
Yeah.
And I think at that level, it becomes it moves from being a general principle to being a specific way to perform.
Right.
So,
I would look at it as the pendulum swinging. Okay, there was a time where no one really cared about fitness, right? Now it's swung to the other end where everyone's talking about protein, for example, right? Like no one spoke about protein for a while. Now everyone's talking about protein, and everything is protein water, protein vodka, protein whatever, right? But it will settle. It'll get to a point where we understand that we underdid it, then we overdid it. Okay, now we get what it is, right? So I think it's a part of it. But in general, things are changing, and things are changing fast. And over the next 10 to 20 years, I kid you not, you are going to have millions and millions of Indians getting into fitness, not necessarily because they want to, but because they have to. And if we have to actually help them as an industry, it is important to take the responsibility of helping people who, when they are ready to take up fitness. The existing solutions will not work. We have to come up with more solutions that are practical for the everyday person.
So I think it's kind of looking brighter for the next generation. What would fitness typically be for, what should it be for a toddler, or when should you start between 1 year of age to up until, say, maybe 10 years or 15 years? What should it be for that group of children?
Okay. I think we need to think more along the lines of movement and not necessarily exercising or fitness, right? Because what we are trying to do, if you think about, we spoke about evolution a little bit. If you think about, I don't know, 20,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, this body was essentially created to live in the wild. Okay? It was created to live in a place where food was scarce and movement was mandatory. Today, the same body is living in a world where food is abundant and movement is almost unnecessary.
It's very unfair. I feel like when we were studying, we used to take the books and walk around. At least that much movement. But with the laptops, you have to be glued to one place.
Yeah, I mean, the difference you're talking about is in the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
But if we talk about the last 100 years, last 200 years, last 1,000 years, it's drastic in how much. The body hasn't changed much at all, but the environment has changed, our behaviors have changed. So the need for fitness today is because we have very little ADL, activities of daily life. Right? If you went back to your grandparents' time, ADL was quite hard. You know, most of our parents have told us, like, I used to walk to school. I used to carry these things. Yeah. So, you know, my mom used to say, you know, how 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers, they'd all walk together as kids and go. So that was enough movement that they did not need exercise for well-being. Okay? So with time, what has happened is movement has reduced gradually. And if you think about what is exercise is essentially a smartly packaged way of moving. Right? You don't have time all day to move anymore. We're mentally, you know, very focused. We're on laptops and meetings. You know, we do all these things no matter what your job is anymore. Right? So what we do is we package all the squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, crawling, jumping. You know, all of that we used to do as a primitive man. Everything that we used to do, we've smartly packaged it very efficiently to fit within an hour. So we're saying that 1 hour, if you do it, that'll make up for not moving for most of the day. Not always true, but in general, what we want to think about is how can we move more? And I think this is important for us to understand, because every day we are designing the future. And if you're talking about the future for the next generation and the generation after, if you're talking about the next 100 years, it's not important, it's more important that we move than we exercise. In other words, we want the world around us to change to become something where we are able to move. So if you talk about kids, do you want kids to start doing exercise from the age of 3 or 4
Baby
or 5?
gym, toddler
right?
gym,
Is
child
that what
gym.
you want? That is unfortunately a solution to the problem that we're facing right now, because the society doesn't let us move as much. Like in a place like Chennai, where we live right now, it's not very easy for you to get out there and do things. It's not like there are too many parks. It's not like you can walk on the road. You know, you can't go for a run. It's kind of hard. So you have to go to a gym. And because free play is becoming lesser and lesser and lesser, we tend to go to more organized play which is what gyms are right now in a lot of ways, right? But what we eventually want to design for is movement. How can we move more? And if you talk about kids, I would say up until the age of at least 6, 7, kids should be allowed free play, a lot of free play, unorganized, just random play. It could be pretend play, it could be, hey, you know what, I'm going to throw the stone, let's see who can pick it up and come fast, whatever, random games, right? So kids should be given that freedom to move. Secondly, after you get to a certain age, say even once you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, you need to start working on skill building, not necessarily exercise, but movement-related skill building that we don't get to do today in the urban setting. Right? So back in the day when you played games outside, when you spent time, with your friends, just randomly running around, carrying things and all that, there were a lot of skills, physical skills and mental skills, neuromuscular coordination, which was built. Today, we don't get an opportunity to do that. If you don't go out, you're at home watching a device.
Yeah.
Right? We've gotten to a stage where watching a movie is productive today. Watch a full movie and that's very productive.
Watch a movie without forwarding it all the time.
Yes, and that's productive, right? But I mean, we've gone to a stage of second screens, having one screen and a second screen. So I think once we get that 7, 8, whatever age, kids should develop basic skills. And by basic skills, I mean kids should know how to squat. They should know how to hold a plank. They should know how to hinge. Again, these all seem like, why should my kid learn all that? Your kids always learnt it. We just didn't call it these things. They did this just by playing. Today, when they're not playing, they're not learning these things.
Bring it to them in a formula.
Yes. So unfortunately, right, because at the end of the day, you need strength, you need mobility, you need stability, you need endurance. These are things that a human being needs, that a human body needs. And if we don't provide it with that, the body is not going to thrive. So for kids, starting about 7, 8, 9, you start doing some kind of skill building. But after about 10, kids should have something sport, something fitness in their lives.
Teens?
Definitely. There is no doubt. Our school system has to improve here. We still do PT, physical training, which is that one period where kids eat lunch early.
The maths teacher will take over.
Yeah, or you write homework or whatever it is that you do, right? We have to get to a point, again, the dream here has always been for me, if kids can pass out of school, say 12th grade, knowing how to squat, deadlift, do push-ups, do pull-ups, and sprint. That's it, just these 5 things. If they can learn these 5 skills over 14 years of schooling, they would be set to do anything they want physically. But usually it's only the kids who are very much into sport who get to do this. So that has to change. So we have to make this a little more fun. We have to make this a little more approachable, make it a little more accessible, not make it something, that is just only the cool kids, only the really athletic kids can do. If you think about sports day in school, there are 30 kids who are competing, right? There are 300 kids who are watching. And then there's another 30, 40 kids who are doing just march past, right? I mean, that's pretty much it. That needs to change. We have to be a little more inclusive. But once we get into 20, 21, that age, once you're out of your teens, you should already have laid the foundation for movement. Now, for a lot of us today, what happens is we start with exercise at 25, 30. We don't have too many of the skills. But because we played around a little bit here and there, didn't spend too much time on the device when we were younger, that was not a problem. But if kids today grow up without activity, by the time they get to 25, 30, it may already be too late. So I think the earlier you start, the better. But if you're talking in today's age, what do different age groups have to do? All of them have to work on the basics. And what I mean by that is everyone has to strength train. Literally everyone. And what do I mean by strength training? I'm not talking about lifting hundreds of kilos. I'm talking about stimulating and strengthening your muscles. This can be seniors, it can be kids, it can be men, women, right? Teenagers, it doesn't matter. Everyone has to strength train because previously strength training was just a part of life. We did load-bearing activities. Today we don't do that, so we have to do that. The second thing everyone has to do is walking, movement. It's one of the most basic forms of movement. It's one of the most underrated activities. It's not really exercise, so to speak. Activity, something that we don't do. And we have to find ways of walking more. Right? If we can do these 2 things, strength training and walking, for the most part, we've taken care of everything. After that, you can add many layers to it. You can add, speed, power, anaerobic endurance, compromised running. You can add a whole bunch of things to that. But at the very base, make sure you're doing some form of strength training. Make sure you're walking a lot.
I think most of us get at some level that we need to be doing workouts, we need to be strength training, we need to be walking, we need to be watching our diet, but we also have, like you said, life catches up and we come up with really inventive excuses. What's the best one that you have heard other than the best one?
I will give you an excuse, in fact. okay? Because I don't believe they're excuses. Fitness itself is very unnatural for us, okay? Because the human body is designed to avoid discomfort unless absolutely necessary. Once again, this body was designed to live in a different world, okay? Back then, what was the point? The point is energy is not hard to consume. I mean, it is hard to consume. You don't get food easily. So you don't exert yourself unless you really have to. So you have these drivers like hunger or whatever it is that make you go and move. Now today, we're living in a world where there is abundant food. You can order something on Swiggy right now, it'll be here before we finish, right? It's so easy to get food. So you're telling everyone in the world that, hey, you know what? You have to consciously and voluntarily put yourself in discomfort, which is going against everything that we are programmed to do. So the only way to do that is for you to be disciplined, for you to be mindful, for you to be motivated. And like you said, life is hard. So not everyone is able to do it. So when people are saying that, hey, you know what, I'm not able to be consistent or I'm not able to sleep, there is always a deeper reason there. It comes down to lifestyle. Because we have to remember, in order to lose weight or get fit or whatever it is that you want to do, you have to change your lifestyle. To change your lifestyle, you have to change your habits. And to change your habits, you have to change your mindset. It all starts with your mindset. Right? And so when people come up with excuses, they are essentially telling us why they are not able to do it. But if you dig deeper and understand two more layers as to why they're not able to do it, you will understand the crux of it. We talk about treating the disease versus treating the symptoms. And we have to treat both eventually. You have to treat the disease and the symptoms, right? Most times, people are just trying to treat the symptoms. And they're trying to do a 21-day challenge or a gut cleanse or this or that, trying to solve that. But if they understand what the real issue is, I think people will not have excuses. I think people will be able to do what they're supposed to do. And the second thing, as far as excuses are concerned, is it's too hard, it's too much to do. Like I have to watch my sleep, I have to manage stress, I have to eat well, I have to exercise, I have to walk. What the hell, how can I do all these things? But what we need to realize here, again, coming down to mindset, is if you can make small changes. So all your excuses, right? I think we need to stop thinking about them as excuses, because I don't believe anyone is really trying to sabotage themselves. I don't think people are trying to be lazy. They are unable to sleep, and so morning is hard. So the question is not why you're not showing up in the morning. The question is, okay, why are you not able to show up in the morning? Because, I wasn't able to sleep till 2 a.m. Okay, why were you not able to sleep till 2 a.m.? Well, I only finished work at 11 p.m. and I had to kind of make myself number for it. Okay, why do you finish work only at 11? You keep going into it and you realize what is really causing them to struggle. Because I think if we understand what each person's individual issues are, we can get past these excuses really, really well.
I believe that it would not be easy, but it's a slow burn. I believe that it would be simple, but is a slow burn method easy?
The slow burn method see, again, when I say slow burn method, when I talk about any diet or any program or anything for that matter, it all comes down to the same things, right? It's about optimizing food consumption and optimizing energy utilization. So you want to consume a certain amount of nutrients, you want to consume a certain amount of calories. But today, the world around you wants you to overindulge. That's just how it is. There's a lot more dessert, there's a lot of junk food, all of that, right? So saying no to that is discomfort. So anything that makes you change is not going to be easy. So that's the first thing we need to remember. Don't expect it to be easy. It's never going to be easy. You get better. You get better at dealing with these things, but it is going to be discomfort. And the reason we're saying it's not easy is because it's going against the hard wiring that we have, which is to embrace, comfort and overconsume energy. That is what our body is designed to do. So if you talk about the slow burn method, what is the slow burn method? It is about making slow changes, simple changes, small changes over a period of time. Okay? It is about that mindset change. It is about making you understand why you really want to do this, what is stopping you from doing it, and getting there gradually. Okay, so the slow burn method is simple, definitely, because you only make a few changes. You're improving the things that you're already doing. For instance, we won't give you a diet plan. Because if you're already eating a certain way, I just have to improve the way you're eating such that you get more protein and vegetables, you consume fewer calories. I don't have to change the way you're eating, okay? So I don't have to make too much of it. Similarly, you're walking. Maybe you're walking 2,000 steps a day. I have to make it 10,000, but I don't have to make it 10,000 overnight. I can get there in 3 months or 4 months. There's no rush. So the concept is trying to make these changes happen without rushing, without pushing. Because when you rush, your body resists. When you push, your body pushes back. The idea is to take these simple changes and make them consistently. If you can do this the way we are structuring it, right? Little changes, little by little, one step at a time, it won't be as hard. but it'll be longer, right? It's the whole sprint versus a marathon kind of thing.
Yeah.
This is going to be something that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So you're going to have to remember that any change that you bring in right now, you have to ask yourself the question, is this sustainable? Will I be able to do this for the next 10 years, 20 years, not just for the next 10 to 20 days? So slow burn method is about slowing things down, slowing your expectations, slowing your progress, slowing your effort. Because in reality, the fastest way to get there is to do it slowly. Because when you do things slowly, you don't make as many mistakes. You don't feel deprived. You don't feel pushed to a corner. You don't feel frustrated. You don't feel like giving up. You're doing things under your control, and you're able to do it more effectively, and things accumulate over a period of time.
Much like skincare, where longevity comes as a result of compounding benefits.
Yep.
One quick question before we wrap. Where should someone who's looking for inspiration start with?
In their journey, you mean?
What is that aha moment for you? It was that 10 o'clock looking at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing, right? We can't rely on that, right? And I strongly believe there are four groups of people, you know, as far as the world is concerned, right? As far as fitness is concerned. There's one group of people who have a survival threat. And that's why they do something for fitness, like what happened to me. Blood work was crazy, you know, you're losing the plot, doctor said so, or someone called me something and I have an identity threat, right? So that's one reason. The second group of people are people who have a major incentive to get fit, okay? Like athletes, actors, not the top level ones, even the low level actors, weekend warriors, athletes, all of them. You want to be fit because you'll get something out of it. The third group of people are people who don't have the survival threat, who don't have an incentive, but they have the wisdom to say, hey, you know what, if I do this now, it'll be good for me later. Like skincare, right? I have to do this now for the, what do you say, I have to do it for at least 4 months? Is that
4 years?
4 years, oh my God, yeah, right? So 4 years, right? You got to do that to see results. So these are people with some amount of wisdom to do that. Obviously, it's a small group. And then there's a fourth group, which has a lot of people. These are the people who are waiting. They're waiting for one of these three things to happen. Either a survival threat has to happen, or you have to give me an incentive, or that mindset switch has to flip. At slow burn method, we see that there are a lot of people who've been there, done that over and over and over again. Either they have a survival threat or they have an incentive. We are hoping that that mindset switch can happen. Because that mindset switch happens, then you don't need that aha moment, right? So my suggestion would be to take some time to understand why you really need to do this and let that wisdom set in. And that's why the book Simple Not Easy also is a lot about that, making you understand why you need to do this. And if you can simplify it, and if you can do this in your way, and I'll tell you this, right? My goal is like the people who learn from me, they should not remember that they learned it from me. They should feel like I came up with this by myself for my life, because only then will you take complete ownership. So my suggestion would be, don't wait for the aha moment. Let the wisdom slowly, accumulate in your head. And soon you will know that you can do this and you will take control.
Thank you so much, Raj, for joining. In almost every single exposome science, which is about, be it acne, be it for hair loss, be it for anti-aging, lifestyle, including exercise, has started featuring in everything dermatology and in everything longevity. So it's been a pleasure having you and discussing about this.
Thank you so much. I had a great time being here.